The world is standing at the edge of a prophecy, an ancient warning, long believed to be just a myth, now unfolding before our very eyes. Israel finds itself once again at the heart of a growing storm, and with it, the fulfillment of one of the most powerful prophecies in the Bible, Gog and Magog. But here's the shocking truth. Could this be the beginning of the end, as foretold in Ezekiel 38 and 39? What if everything we know about world politics, about the alliances shaping our future, is actually leading us into a conflict that was prophesied over 2,500 years ago? Why is the tension between Iran and Israel escalating at such an alarming rate? Could this all be a divine plan being revealed in our time? What if the Iran-Israel conflict, with its missile strikes and unrelenting tension, is not just a modern war, but the final chapter of a divine plan that has been quietly unfolding all along? In this video, we will dive deep into the startling connection between today's geopolitical struggles and the ancient biblical prophecy of Gog and Magog. You'll uncover the hidden truths about the end times, understand why nations like Iran, formerly Persia, and Russia are playing such critical roles, and discover how these ancient prophecies align with the world we see today. You'll come to realize that Israel's security, once thought to be solely reliant on its military strength, is part of a far greater divine protection, as promised in the Holy Scriptures. This is not just a story of war, it is a story of divine intervention, of a battle that will change everything. The historical and biblical significance of Gog and Magog in prophecy. The prophecy of Gog and Magog, found in the Bible in the book of Ezekiel, chapters 38 and 39, speaks of an apocalyptic battle that many believe is yet to come. In these chapters, Gog, the leader of the land of Magog, is described as gathering a vast coalition of nations to wage war against Israel in the final days. These nations include ancient powers such as Persia, modern-day Iran, Kush, Sudan and Ethiopia, Put, Libya, and Gomer, part of modern-day Turkey. The overwhelming attack is depicted as an attempt to seize Israel's wealth and bring about its destruction. However, what's most striking about this prophecy is not the war itself, but the divine intervention that follows. At the heart of this prophecy lies an ancient truth that many may overlook: God's protection over Israel. While Gog and Magog gather their forces and prepare to strike, the Lord, in his power and might, intervenes to protect his chosen people. In Ezekiel 38:18-23, God's fury is unleashed in the form of earthquakes, torrential rain, and even fire and brimstone. The invaders are defeated, not by Israel's military might, but by the hand of God himself. This is a profound reminder that the battles of this world are not merely fought on the physical plane, but are part of a greater divine plan, one that transcends nations, politics, and human power. As we witness the modern world's political turmoil, it's important to see the echoes of this prophecy. Nations like Iran have become key players in the region, and their hostility toward Israel continues to grow. The alliance between Iran and Russia in the Middle East adds to the tension, drawing a parallel to the ancient alliance that would rise in the end times. But there's more. The prophecy also speaks of a peaceful Israel, living in security, unaware of the impending storm. Today, Israel stands as a beacon of technological prowess and military strength, but its ultimate security is not in these things. Just as in Ezekiel's time, God's divine intervention will ultimately shield Israel when the time comes. In modern terms, we are witnessing the rise of powers that align with the prophetic description in Ezekiel. And it's a powerful reminder that biblical prophecy is not confined to ancient history. It is living, active, and unfolding before our eyes. When we look at the world today, especially with the ongoing tensions between Israel and Iran, it's hard not to see the connection. The call of Ezekiel rings louder than ever. God's protection over Israel is absolute, and despite the chaos of war, he will have the final say. This doesn't mean that Israel's people won't face trials or challenges. The Bible does not promise a life free from hardship, but rather it promises that in the end, God will triumph and his people will be preserved. In the face of great conflict, the Israelites will be reminded of their true protector, not their military, not their political alliances, but the Almighty God who keeps his promises. And this is a powerful lesson for us all. We are not meant to rely solely on our own strength, but to trust in the power of God to deliver us, even in the most trying times. This is the lesson of Gog and Magog, that no matter the enemy, no matter the size of the forces arrayed against us, God is greater, and his power will prevail. So, as we look at the escalating tensions in the Middle East, we are reminded to keep our eyes not just on the political events unfolding, but on the divine plan that is guiding history toward its ultimate fulfillment. And this leads us into the next part of the prophecy, where the divine intervention that changes the course of history becomes central. Divine intervention, how God will act in the battle of Gog and Magog. The concept of divine intervention is perhaps the most striking element of the Gog and Magog prophecy. In Ezekiel 38 and 39, the invaders think they are coming to conquer a vulnerable Israel. They believe that Israel, at this point in history, is living in false security, a nation without walls, gates, or defenses. But they are wrong. The true strength of Israel lies not in its military prowess, but in its covenant with God. In this world of constant strife and uncertainty, it's easy to forget the power of divine intervention. We get caught up in the daily grind, in the headlines that scream of wars, rumors of wars, and nations rising against each other. We look to politicians, armies, and treaties for answers. But the Bible reminds us that God's hand is sovereign over all. In the battle of Gog and Magog, God doesn't just sit by. He acts. When Gog and his allies march toward Israel, God will make his presence known in ways that the world has never seen. Ezekiel 38:20 describes a massive earthquake that shakes the entire region, causing the invading forces to turn on each other. God will send hailstones, fire, and brimstone to destroy the invaders, turning their attack into their own downfall. This isn't a war fought by human hands. This is a divine act of justice and power. Think about the times in biblical history when God intervened. Recall the Red Sea, where God parted the waters to deliver the Israelites from Pharaoh's army, or when he brought down the walls of Jericho without a single soldier lifting a sword. In each case, God's intervention wasn't just about winning a battle. It was about showing the world that he is in control. In our modern world, we often feel powerless in the face of global conflicts. We watch the news and wonder how much longer peace can last. We feel small in the grand scheme of things, like a tiny speck in a vast, chaotic world. But the story of Gog and Magog teaches us a profound lesson. God will intervene at the right moment. No matter how powerful the forces of evil seem, no matter how hopeless the situation looks, God is still in control, and he will act when the time is right. This gives us hope. No matter what we face, whether it's personal trials, national struggles, or global conflict, we are not alone. The same God who intervened in the past is still present today. He is the protector of Israel, and he is our protector too. The final battle may be looming on the horizon, but it's not a battle we will fight alone. God's intervention will make all the difference. His power is greater than any earthly power, and he will show his glory to the nations when the time comes. This powerful truth shifts our perspective. Instead of focusing solely on the wars and conflicts around us, we can rest in the knowledge that God's divine plan is unfolding, and he will act in his time. The battle of Gog and Magog is not just about the defeat of evil, it's about the ultimate victory of God, and that victory will be witnessed by the entire world. As we turn to the next part of the prophecy, we are reminded that this is not just about Israel or the Middle East, this is about the entire world. The entire earth will witness the intervention of God, a moment that will change the course of history forever. And in the end, God's name will be glorified, and all nations will know that He is the Lord. The security of Israel, how God's divine protection will prevail. The idea that Israel stands secure not because of its might or military strength, but because of God's protection, is a powerful truth woven throughout the Bible. This divine assurance is the core of the prophecy of Gog and Magog. In Ezekiel 38 we read that Israel, in the midst of an unprecedented attack from a vast coalition of nations, is living in peace and security, without walls, bars, or gates. This paints a picture of Israel seemingly unprepared for the storm that is about to come. Yet, as the prophecy unfolds, it becomes clear that Israel's security is not based on physical defenses, but on a supernatural protection ordained by God. At the time of the prophecy, Israel had no walls or gates to defend itself against foreign invaders, and yet God's divine intervention would turn the tide of war. This protection is not simply a future event. It's a reminder to all of us, even today, that when we face our battles, whether they be personal struggles, global tensions, or existential threats, we can rely on God's protection. It's easy to be caught up in the belief that the answers to our problems lie in political alliances, military strength, or even financial security. But the truth is that ultimate safety comes from God alone. This divine intervention is not just a matter of Israel's physical survival, it is a matter of the world recognizing God's sovereignty. As Ezekiel 38:23 states, God's actions will be so profound that the nations will know that I am the Lord. The entire world will witness God's glory and power, affirming His authority over all creation. Israel, seemingly vulnerable and unprotected, will be delivered by the hand of God, and the nations will acknowledge His ultimate power. This is the security that comes not from military alliances or technological advances, but from divine intervention. In our modern context, the rising tensions in the Middle East, especially between Israel and Iran, serve as a striking reminder that geopolitical powers are only one piece of the puzzle. While Israel's military is one of the most advanced in the world, its true security lies in the protection of the Almighty. The current situation, with escalating missile attacks and political uncertainty, is a powerful illustration of how the forces of darkness can seem overwhelming, yet God's hand is still sovereign. As we watch these events unfold, we are reminded that no matter how powerful the enemy may seem, the ultimate victory belongs to God. The battle between Israel and its enemies is not just a battle of military forces. It is a spiritual battle, a clash between the forces of good and evil, and in the end, God will have the final say. This truth should not only give us hope, but inspire us to trust in God's sovereignty over every situation. Israel's ultimate protection is not from its army, but from the hand of the one who has promised to never leave nor forsake His people. As we look at the world today, we may find ourselves in situations where the challenges before us seem insurmountable. Whether it is personal hardship, family struggles, or the uncertainty of world events, we are often tempted to rely on our own strength, our own solutions, and our own strategies. But the lesson from Israel is clear. Our ultimate safety comes from God, not from our own resources. When the world seems chaotic, when the storms of life rage, we can trust in God's divine protection. This is the hope that the prophecy of Gog and Magog gives us, that God's protection will never fail. As we move forward in the prophecy, we must remember that this divine security is not limited to Israel, but extends to all who trust in God. His hand of protection is available to all who call on His name. The divine protection of Israel is a symbol of God's faithfulness to His people. an assurance that he will fulfill his promises, not just for Israel, but for all who put their trust in him. Divine intervention and the final victory, the end of Gog and Magog. The final victory over the forces of Gog and Magog is a powerful reminder that ultimately God wins. In the prophecy, we see the armies of Gog, representing the forces of evil, coming against Israel in a final, overwhelming attack. But just as in the past, when the forces of Pharaoh's army were drowned in the Red Sea, or when the walls of Jericho fell without a single sword being drawn, God acts. As Ezekiel 39:4-5 declares, "The enemy will fall at the gates of Israel, and the battle will be won without Israel lifting a finger." God's divine intervention will come in the form of a supernatural disaster, hailstones, fire and brimstone, that will cause the enemy forces to turn on one another. This is the ultimate reminder that God is in control, and when the time comes, he will bring judgment upon the wicked and deliver his people. The Battle of Gog and Magog is not just about a political or military conflict. It is a spiritual reckoning. It is about God making his justice known to the nations. It's about showing that no matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how daunting the odds, God's justice will prevail. The nations may come together to defeat Israel, but in the end, it is God who brings the final victory. We may wonder why such violence and destruction are necessary. Why does God allow such battles to unfold? The truth is that God's judgment is not arbitrary. It is a necessary part of his divine plan. Just as a parent disciplines a child to bring about growth and maturity, God's judgment serves to reveal his holiness, to purify his people, and to demonstrate his justice. The victory over Gog and Magog is not just about defeating the enemy. It's about demonstrating to the world that God is sovereign and his ways are perfect. This prophecy teaches us that the forces of evil will not go unchallenged. When God moves, no force on earth can stand against him. The final victory over Gog and Magog will be a glorious moment of divine triumph, a moment when all of creation will recognize that God is the true ruler of the universe. This victory will be seen not just by Israel, but by all the nations, as God's glory is revealed to the world. The final outcome of the Battle of Gog and Magog is a powerful reminder to all believers that God's sovereignty is undeniable. No matter how dark the world may seem, no matter how powerful the forces of evil appear, God will have the final word. The enemy may rise up, but God's intervention will be swift, decisive, and final. This is the ultimate victory that we, as believers, look forward to. The triumph of God's kingdom over the forces of darkness. As we reflect on this powerful prophecy, we are reminded that God's ultimate plan is one of victory. He will not only protect his people, but also bring justice and judgment upon the wicked. This assurance should give us hope as we face the challenges of life. Even when we cannot see the way forward, we can trust that God's intervention is coming, and his victory will be complete. The battle belongs to the Lord, and in the end, he will be glorified. The Battle of Gog and Magog, the final triumph of God's kingdom. The Battle of Gog and Magog, as depicted in the Bible, is more than just a military confrontation. It is the climactic moment in the grand narrative of God's sovereignty over the earth. This battle, which will be fought in the last days, is not only a conflict between nations, but a spiritual battle for the ultimate victory of God's kingdom. The forces of evil, led by Gog, will rise up to attack Israel, the chosen people, yet they will find themselves powerless against the mighty hand of God. In the prophecy of Ezekiel, we see a world on the brink of destruction, with Gog and his allies, Persia, modern-day Iran, Gomer, Beth Togarmah, and others joining forces to invade Israel. The attack will seem overwhelming, but it will also serve as a final test of humanity's defiance against God. The nations will rally together in an attempt to topple Israel, But in the end, God will demonstrate that no power on earth is greater than his. The most remarkable part of this battle is the intervention of God. It's not Israel's military might or the power of any earthly army that will deliver the victory, but the supernatural intervention of God himself. Ezekiel chapter 38, 21-23, makes it clear that when Gog's forces come to attack, God will send a mighty earthquake that will cause chaos and confusion among the invaders. They will turn on each other, fighting their own comrades, and God will send rain, hailstones, fire, and brimstone to completely destroy them. The victory will belong to God alone. This divine act of judgment is not just for Israel's benefit, but for the entire world. The prophecy tells us that when this battle is over, the nations will know that God is the Lord. This is more than just a physical battle. It is a spiritual showdown where the forces of good and evil collide, and where God's supreme power is put on display for all to see. It is a moment of divine vindication, where God will show the world that he is in control of history, and no matter how much power the enemy may seem to have, God is the ultimate ruler. The Battle of Gog and Magog serves as a reminder that the world is not divided into two sides, the forces of good and evil, but into the side of God and everything else. The battle is a battle of allegiance. Will we side with God, or will we side with the powers of darkness? The choice is stark, but the outcome is clear. When the battle is over, God will reign supreme, and his kingdom will be established forever. This ultimate victory is not just about the defeat of Gog and Magog. It is the final establishment of God's kingdom on earth. This prophecy points us to the ultimate end of history, where God's will is perfectly fulfilled, and his rule is acknowledged by all creation. It is a victory that transcends time and space, for it brings about the end of evil, the restoration of peace, and the fullness of God's glory. In today's world, the Battle of Gog and Magog can seem distant, an event that will happen in the future, far beyond our lifetimes. Yet it speaks deeply to the human heart and to our present reality. In a world where injustice, suffering, and sin seem to hold sway, it's easy to feel as though evil will never be defeated. We may look at the world and wonder if God's promises are truly real. We may face personal battles, trials, struggles, suffering, that leave us questioning whether God really cares about our situation. But the story of Gog and Magog teaches us something profound. God has not forgotten his promises. He is not slow in fulfilling them, but he is waiting for the perfect moment to act. In the face of overwhelming forces, it may seem as if God is silent. But the Battle of Gog and Magog shows us that God is never absent. His timing is perfect, and when he intervenes, it is with the full force of his power and righteousness. The ultimate victory over Gog and Magog will be a glorious moment of justice when God's name is glorified, and the world will see that he is the true ruler of all creation. As we live in the tension of now between the already and the not yet, we are reminded that God's kingdom is coming, and when it comes, it will bring with it the end of all evil and the restoration of peace. The victory of God over Gog and Magog will be the final chapter of history, but it is not a chapter we must wait for passively. It calls us to faith and trust in God, knowing that even in the darkest moments, his kingdom is advancing. We are living in the in-between, but the battle has already been won. Christ is victorious, and one day the victory will be fully realized. This is our hope, and this is our assurance. This victory is also a call to action for all who believe in God. Just as the nations of the earth will one day have to answer for their allegiance, we too are called to answer. Will we choose to stand with God in his victory, or will we side with the forces of darkness that will ultimately be defeated? The Battle of Gog and Magog is not just a battle for nations. It is a battle for our hearts. Today, we are invited to be on the side of God's victory. This final victory over Gog and Magog, though a future event, speaks powerfully to our present reality. It reminds us that God's kingdom is unstoppable and that God's justice will one day be fully realized. This is the hope that sustains us as we face the challenges of life. We may not yet see the full picture, but we know that in the end, God will win. And when He does, we will see the establishment of a new heaven and a new earth where peace reigns and evil is no more. The Battle of Gog and Magog shows us that the ultimate victory is God's, and in this victory we are invited to take part, not as passive observers, but as active participants in the advancing of God's kingdom. As we walk through this world, we are reminded to keep our eyes fixed on the eternal hope that God will one day make all things right. Until that day, we are called to live faithfully, knowing that God's victory is certain and His kingdom will come. This is the triumph of God's kingdom, a triumph that will resonate throughout all eternity. Let us live in the light of this truth, knowing that in the end, God wins. As we come to the close of this profound journey through the prophecy of Gog and Magog, it's impossible to ignore the weight and significance of what we've just uncovered. In a world filled with chaos, confusion, and countless questions about what the future holds, the prophecy of Gog and Magog offers us a powerful, undeniable truth. God's plan is sovereign, unshakable, and unstoppable. We've seen how nations, rising in opposition to Israel, will ultimately be defeated, not by human hands, but by the mighty intervention of God Himself. It is a profound reminder that no matter the turmoil we face, God's victory is assured, and His ultimate triumph is what will shape the end of history. Perhaps you find yourself asking, why does this matter to me? What relevance does an ancient prophecy have in my life today? The answer is simple, but profound. God's promises are timeless. The same God who promised protection to Israel in the face of overwhelming forces is the same God who promises to protect and guide each one of us in the midst of our own battles. Whether you are struggling with personal challenges, facing the darkness of uncertainty, or feeling overwhelmed by the events unfolding around you, there is hope. The same God who promised to intervene in the battle of Gog and Magog is the God who is with you today. His protection, His justice, His love, and His grace are available to you, no matter the circumstances. As we reflect on the divine protection given to Israel, we are reminded that our ultimate security does not rest in the strength of our armies or the power of our resources. It rests in the Almighty God who holds the future in His hands. Israel's security came not from its military might, but from the promises of a faithful God. And just as God fulfilled His promises to Israel, He will be faithful to His people today. This is the source of our hope, that no matter how great the forces against us may seem, God will have the final say. This knowledge should bring peace to your heart, knowing that no weapon formed against you will prosper. The world may be full of uncertainty, and at times it may feel like the forces of darkness are overwhelming. But take heart, for God is still in control. Just as He promised to stand with Israel in their hour of need, He promises to stand with you. His plans are perfect, and His will is good. This is not just a promise to Israel, it is a promise to all who call upon His name. As the world shifts and changes, as nations rise and fall, one thing remains certain: God's victory is guaranteed. But there's more to this prophecy than just a future event. The victory of Gog and Magog is not just a story from the past or a tale of the future. It is a reminder to us today that God is actively at work in our world. The rising tensions in the Middle East, the constant shift in geopolitics, and the increasing hostility towards Israel are all part of a greater divine narrative. They serve as a call to action for us as believers. We are called to stand firm in our faith, to trust in God's sovereignty, and to be a light in the darkness. The world may seem chaotic, but we are called to walk in the peace of God, knowing that His plan is unfolding exactly as He has promised. If this message has touched your heart, if you found a sense of peace or strength in the midst of life's storms, I encourage you to consider sharing your thoughts. What does this prophecy mean to you? How does the assurance of God's ultimate victory change the way you see the world today? Your thoughts and reflections matter, and sharing them can help others who may be seeking the same hope. Let's start a conversation in the comments. What does God's protection mean to you in your daily life? How can we stand firm together, trusting in His promises? If you've found value in this message, if it has brought you some light in a dark season, I invite you to support this channel. Your support makes it possible for me to continue sharing the Word of God, to create videos that remind us of His promises and His faithfulness. Every like, every subscription, every small gesture of encouragement means the world to me. It's a powerful reminder that we are not alone in this journey. We are all part of a larger family, united in faith. As we close, remember that God's plan for your life is good, and no matter what battles you face, you are not fighting them alone. The victory of Gog and Magog is just one chapter in a greater story, and that story is still unfolding in your life today. Trust in God's promises, and know that He is with you, guiding you, and protecting you every step of the way. His victory is assured, and you are part of that victory. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching, for engaging, and for allowing me to share this message with you. May you walk in the peace of knowing that God's kingdom is coming, and no matter what happens, He will never leave nor forsake you. May His peace fill your heart, His strength fill your life, and His love surround you always. Keep trusting, keep believing, and know that the victory belongs to the Lord.